evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's your host, Belmont, and I'm here today with, I guess this is going to be a little bit more of a rant than a ramble. I've been seeing a lot of talk lately about the new FromSoft DLC for Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, and I've seen a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, complaining about the difficulty of this DLC, how it's much harder than it really should be, and things like that. And I think the main issue here is it's not ostensibly harder than other FromSoft games or DLCs. It's just that Elden Ring is pretty much the most massive release, the most widespread game from Software. Because, I think to date, Elden Ring has over 25 million sales. Where you look at something like Sekiro, which has 12 million, or Dark Souls 3, which has 15 million. I might be wrong about that one. I haven't looked at Dark Souls 3 sales in a while. But my point is, Elden Ring is a much more massive game, both in scale and reach, as far as audience is concerned. So naturally, you're going to have a lot more people playing this game, which means you're going to have a lot more people complaining about the game. And it's going to seem like a bigger problem for the most part. It's a scale thing. If 1 out of 100 people complains about something, if you only have 100 people playing the game and one complains, well, it's just one person complaining. That doesn't seem like a problem at all. If you've got 1,000 people complaining or playing it and 100 complain, it's not really that big a deal. You're like, it's only 100 people. It's more than one. But if you've got 10 million people playing and suddenly 100,000 are complaining about it, well, it's going to get a lot of attention. And that's kind of the problem I think I see with this DLC. Because the people complaining about it, I just don't think they're well versed in the FromSoft world, or they're not familiar with the fact that FromSoft DLC has always stepped up the game to the next level. I think a lot of people are making the same mistake. They're making the mistake of trying to jump into their already existing character and run straight to the DLC, not realizing that most DLC from FromSoftware kind of incentivizes you to start a new character and, re-explore the world, rebuild yourself up, and come into that area organically. If you just jump into a new area at in Elden Ring, you're 240 level or 230 or whatever. I think my character is only 190. But if I just jumped into that new area at 190, everything's going to seem way more difficult. Man, I can't talk right now. I apologize. But things are going to seem way more difficult because you're jumping into a new area, and a lot of FromSoftware games have kind of a scaling thing to where when you enter an area, it kind of recognizes what level you are, so it tries to challenge you based on that. So if you're, you're probably rusty, you haven't played Elden Ring in months, and you're jumping into the game, you're jumping in at a higher difficulty, and you're probably just getting, as we used to say back in the day, raffle stomped. Which, yeah, that's probably going to happen to you. Especially with a game kind of like Elden Ring, because it attracted a lot of new players, which is cool. But if you've played a lot of FromSoft games, Elden Ring is probably on the easier side as far as FromSoft is concerned. I felt the difficulty level of Elden Ring was much lower compared to something like Dark Souls 3, compared to Bloodborne, compared to Sekiro, compared to freaking Armored Core 6. If you've played that, holy crap, that game's hard. You want to play a hard game? Go play Armored Core. You want to play a hard game? Go play Sekiro. Sekiro was punishing. I know a lot of people out there are like, oh, I'm a master at Sekiro. Yeah, that game's easy. But those same people saying that aren't going to tell you that they died 500 fucking times playing that game. They're not going to admit that, it took them 3 days and dozens of hours to beat Sword Saint Ishin. There's so much in FromSoft that is so hard and so difficult. It makes Elden Ring look super easy. Like, you want to play a real hard DLC from FromSoft, go play Dark Souls 3, go to the Painted World of Ariando, and go get stomped by Gale. You finally beat Gale, and you're like, oh, I did it. Shit, that was hard. And then you're like, oh, let's go see what the next area is. Oh, Sister Frida. Oh, okay. Black Flame Frida. One of the hardest freaking bosses I think I've ever played in a FromSoft game. Personally, for me, like, she was probably the boss I had the most trouble with out of any of the games I've played. Followed closely by Sword Saint Ishin and that fucking Demon of Hatred, but that's a whole nother story. That thing is just a cheese fest. Demon of Hatred was an endurance trial for many people, myself included. Like, I don't think anything I played in Elden Ring, any of the bosses in Elden Ring, I think gave me the trouble that Demon of Hatred gave me. I don't think any of them gave me the trouble that Black Flame Frida gave me. I know a lot of people, but a lot of people have different problems with different characters in FromSoft because it's a very versatile game and it leads to very different things. Like, I know people that quit playing Dark Souls 3 because they couldn't get past Pontiff Sullivan, and it's like, I didn't have a trouble with Pontiff. I'm one of the lucky people that I cracked that code right away. I think I beat Pontiff on my first time. On like my first playthrough, my first time. But then I got to someone like Dancer of the Boreal Valley and about damn near quit the game because I just couldn't figure out the freaking timing of the attack. That one took me probably 2 days. Frida probably took me about 4 days of just putting my controller down and walking away from my console in frustration because I could not get past her. Nameless King is considered one of the hardest fights in all of Dark Souls, I think. It's one of the top ones for sure. And I think it only took me like 6 or 7 tries to beat him. But like, everyone has their own difficulty. Like, I know people that can't beat anything in Bloodborne. They just think it's the worst game ever because it's too hard for them. But those are the people that are used to Dark Souls, because Bloodborne is the opposite of Dark Souls when it comes to combat. Dark Souls rewards you for your patience and punishes you for being aggressive, where Bloodborne punishes you for patience and rewards you for being aggressive. And it's really hard to get used to the system in Bloodborne. I don't remember all the characters' names in Bloodborne. I've never beaten Bloodborne because I don't own it. I've only played it a little bit at my friend's house. And I just remember getting to some big, dumb, like, ugly werewolf monster. It was a huge, like, werewolf. I know that's not very descriptive. There's a ton of werewolves in that game. My friend could tell you the name right off rip. But that was a hard boss, too. Like, I was like, oh, man, this is defying all the things they've taught me in this game so far. And, what was her name in Armored Core 6? Aya? I'm probably screwing that up. I apologize because I mispronounce these guys' names all the time because, I didn't write them. But Armored Core 6, I think it was Aria or Iria. God damn it. I'm mad at myself for getting that wrong, probably. But that was a brutal fight. And the final fight, man, talk about one of the hardest last bosses in the game. I know people want to talk about, like, Melina from Elden Ring being difficult, but, like, go play Armored Core. No, seriously, go play it, and you'll look at Elden Ring in a new light. Go play the Painted World of Ariando. Go to the Ring City and deal with just some of the regular freaking dudes you have to deal with in that area. Go fight Gale. Go fight Sister Frida. Go fight Nameless King. Go fight any of the bosses the first time you play Sekiro. Genichiro seems impossible the first time you fight him. You're like, just when you think you've cracked the code, he's like, yeah, now I'm gonna throw lightning at you. Or like Father Owl. Like you want to talk about one of the most difficult fights. Like Father Owl and Sword Saint Ishin are god tier boss battles. Like I have don't know how many videos I've seen of people posting they're finally killing them because they're like, I spent a year fighting this guy. There's a ton of Reddit posts about that on the Sekiro subreddit. It's glorious and understandable because that dude Ishin just, did you think you've got that one down? Then he's like, yeah, I'm gonna pull out a Glock. I'm also the gun saint. Yeah, I've got a gun. Shoots 4 bullets at you in a row in rapid succession. I hope you were prepared, but you weren't. You weren't prepared for him to pull out a gun. You weren't prepared for a giant ape to pick up its own severed head and then start fighting you with a sword. Like, Sekiro was overall probably the hardest FromSoft game I think I've played. Hardest DLC is definitely the Painted World of Ariandel. Because like I said, when you're fighting Gale, you're like, oh my god, can it get any harder than this? And you finally beat him, and then you go up, and Sister Frieda's like, yeah, it does get here. Here, hold my prayer candle. Let me just school you on what hard is. And I think that's the stuff that really helped me with Elden Ring. Because like I said, Elden Ring, when you play it after playing some of these other games, it's not as difficult with the scaling. Like, you can start, I think it's the Land of the Reeds outfit. If you're a Land of the Reeds character, you start with samurai armor and all this, but you start with the Uchi Katana, which is one of the best weapons in the game. You just start with it. And if you go with that build, you're not going to have any trouble. Like, I went with the Land of the Reeds because it's like, oh, cool, I'm going to be a samurai in this game. This is a little different. Like, usually when you have open world games from FromSoft, they're mostly, European themed armors. Like, Dark Souls is almost all European themed armors. To get the Uchi Katana, you have to, well, in Dark Souls 3, you have to defeat the Master, who's just this normal looking guy in a loincloth that just happens to be able to, like, 3-piece your character for your first, like, 50 levels. Unless you just pump everything into your health and you're a psychopath and you're wasting your levels for some reason. But, you can cheese the Master off a cliff. Like, you can get him to, if you can both jump off the cliff or get him to attack you off the cliff and him die before you die, you can get the Uchi Katana with little to no effort. But that's a whole different level of skill because you're talking about timing your own death to perfection. But there's just tons and tons of DLC throughout the FromSoft era. Like, I think every giant spider in Dark Souls or Demon Souls is a insanely difficult boss that puts some of the bosses in Elden Ring to shame. And just, I don't know. It could just be me. I know there's a bunch of people on Reddit and game forums that also think that Elden Ring is a much easier FromSoft game compared to some of their other titles. And I know there's a lot of people that think it's stupid difficult, it's punishing, it's not fair, it's a bad game now because of this. I've seen a lot of people on X. It's funny because, there's not a big gamer base on X right now, which is ridiculous considering that Elon Musk streams Diablo 4. And, so you think that would draw more people in for the gamer base, but the gamers on there seem to mostly be the complainers. And a lot of them are talking about Elden Ring right now and how difficult this DLC is and how it's stupid that they have to collect things to upgrade their character. And it's like, that's like 30% of all Souls games is collecting pieces of items to upgrade your weapons and upgrade your armor and make yourself better and stronger so you can actually progress and beat the game. Unless you're one of those psycho people that's like, I'm going to beat the game with a stick. Which, there's people out there that do it. Okay, congratulations. I'm going to do a broken sword run in Dark Souls 3 For those people that know what I'm talking about, like that's the thing that people do. I'm not going to tell you need to get good. I'm not going to tell you it's a skills issue. It is absolutely a patience issue. It is absolutely a understanding the game's mechanics issue. And I guess at the heart of get good, that's what it is. Get good really means like, do you understand the game? Do you understand what it is you're doing, how it works, how it functions? And if you don't, I mean, you're going to fail. And Elden Ring is very much a Souls game. It might not be Souls in name, but it is Souls in spirit. And it's very, very much a FromSoft game. And that's what they do. They release a DLC that is punishingly hard and punishingly difficult, just like the game is. And if you've cracked the game, if you've beaten Elden Ring, if you've beaten Melina, if I'm pronouncing her name right, if you've beaten that game, you can beat the DLC. Like, you just got to figure out the niche. You got to figure it out. My best suggestion for the people out there crying and complaining is to start a fresh character. And if you're having trouble, like I said, start with the Land of the Reeds character, because you start with Uchikatana, and it's got Unsheath, and you know that's one of the best weapons in the game. It's just one of the best weapons in the game. Like I might not be right in that assessment with the numbers that people have figured out and all that stuff, and it might not be a sword that shoots laser, but I Uchikatana that whole game. And I enjoyed the experience, and I never had like a real issue where I was like, "Oh my god, this boss is impossible." Yeah, that's about it. That's my take on it. I do not understand. Well, no, I do understand. I think the people that are playing Elden Ring and complaining about the DLC just aren't that versed in From Software titles, and or just haven't figured out how to crack the code on this one. You know, take a step back, take a rest, sleep, let your brain learn from, you know, when you sleep at night, your brain learns from the lessons of the day and helps you apply them better. That's how most of the impossible bosses for me, I was able to defeat, by resting on it, coming back the next day with a fresh viewpoint and applying the lessons that I learned. So stop whining, start gaming. That's all I have for today. Belmont out.